Good evening, and thank you very much for staying tuned to ZTV Corner. Remember, you can catch us on Facebook and YouTube. This is the Inside Show, and I'll be your host for the show. My name is Hope Msonda. On this show, we'll bring you interesting political figures and civil society heads. Our very first guest in studio this evening is Mr. Kenneth Chitupa, who is the national chairman for the National Revolution Party. Welcome to the show and good evening.
Good evening, thank you. I'm greatly humbled to be once again back
with me.
With you again.
Last time it was heated, so I hope in this one will go smoothly.
Well, I hope so. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so dear viewers, we will be discussing interesting national issues. Matters of national interest are our concern. So, Mr. Chitupa, first things first, let's talk about the issue of Nkwazi House. Recently, we had Mr. Anthony Bwalya, presidential press aide, who was on 5FM and stated that the Nkwazi House is currently inhabitable for the current president to live there. Your comment on that?
First and foremost, what I know is the way government functions is that we have a Ministry of Works and Supply. Yes, they've got engineers, they've got government workers, let me just say government workers. These are the people who look into the maintenance of ministerial houses, government houses, state house, and so forth. So it's not the issue of just coming up with a statement and then you tell the public to say that we want to maintain state house, other than just first of all do a feasibility study. You come up with a committee to look into that, and then that committee of engineers, they are the ones who can come up with a justifiable statement to say, look, state house is not habitable. So since it is not habitable, then the head of state cannot stay there. And then they can also recommend if they want to do maintenance works, or if they want to build another one, they can do that. But you can't just come up with a statement. I don't know whether they sat down for him to have issued such a statement. I do agree that the State House has been there for quite some time. And I remember even during the Rupia Bandas, the SATA presidency, there was some sections of the society were saying we need to build another state house, or rather to renovate it. So it means every time somebody comes in, we have to renovate it.
But how often is Nkwazi House on its own actually renovated? Is it maybe every 5 years, every 10 years, or every after a sitting president?
That I cannot do too much on that area, because I'm not the best person who can tell them to say, or who can tell you to say that maintenance of this building can take, maybe 10 years or after 5 years. I'm not into that area. But in my own view, I feel that we've got a ministry, like I stated earlier on. We've got a ministry and serious engineers in this country who can go there and come up with a report after having, carried out evaluation, through all the corners of, State House, and then come up to say, look, we cannot be able to allow the head of state to continue staying in that house because it is not habitable. It is true, it has stayed for a very long time, but all they needed to do is to come up with a proper coordinated statement where they've got facts, The engineers are saying this, these ones are saying this, so that people will be able to know, what they are saying is okay, other than to just give a statement. I feel that statement was not done in good faith. because at the moment, the government is losing too much money. Too much money transporting of the head of state to go to the office. You understand? The government is losing too much money. Why? If he was staying there, they would have been spending less. I hear even certain ministers and press aides, they haven't moved to ministerial houses. They are waiting for the ministerial houses to be renovated.
But then, Mr. Chitupa, looking at a structured system like Zambia's system, where every 5 years we have general elections,
Yes.
and every 5 years it's a 50-50% chance that we might have a new president. Don't you think it would be prudent to have a structure where, let's say, it would take 3 months to renovate these houses, so that the ministers or the president can make a move as soon as possible? Or don't you think it is prudent that when it comes to ministerial houses, that ministers actually move out when the campaign period starts, so that renovations can start?
Yes. Our constitution is different from the other constitutions in the world. If you look at the US constitution, the president will be elected today. They will have to be given 3 months before the incumbent can hand over whatever. During that period, I believe is a period where if people wanted to, or if the new government wanted to renovate, the building, this is the time they can do that. But in Zambia, we don't have such time. The moment the president has been elected today, it must take only two days or 3 days. The incumbent must give him power. Now, when he is given power, is he going to State House or he will go to another place? Constitutionally, in my own view, it is not allowing. There is no provision for that.
So we have a lacuna in our constitution.
We have a lacuna on that one, of course. We have a lacuna because if there is a provision for that, then the government would have said, okay, since there is a provision, we can have, let's say, 3 months period to always do what is right by way of start renovating houses, ministerial houses, State House, and so forth, so that the newcomers can come in and then kickstart the works.
Looking at the renovation and financial part, maybe it would be interesting to get your view on our next question, which is, do you think we should have, like we have the Ministry of Works and Supply, should it be a tendered project? Every time we have a change of government, we have a different company renovating these particular houses, or should it be given to one particular company that knows that every time there's a change of government, we move in swiftly and quickly?
It mustn't be like that, but there must be a coordinated system. Like, when you talk about State House, it's not an ordinary house. Yeah, State House is a very important house. Okay? It's got security features there. It's got a lot of things that, the head of state may need. Therefore, you cannot just, float a tender to every Jim and Jack. Yeah, there must be a coordinated, procedure where they look at security measures and several other things that may be concerned. That's what I know.
Now,
yes.
Speaking of security measures, do you think that maybe the president is actually delaying to move in due to security concerns? Could it be?
They are saying it is not habitable. So when they say it is not habitable, I will think that if they say it is not habitable, it is the house which is dilapidated. You can see that the roofs are leaking. When you look at ceiling board, it's also worn out. The floor and so forth. Maybe there's a scent coming out of the toilets and other things like that. So that's what I was thinking. But if the structure is still strong, of which I believe it must be strong, because if it's for the government, every time it is maintained, isn't it? We have people work day and night cleaning and doing all sorts of good things in that house. So if they say it is not habitable, they must state properly what do they mean. If it's not habitable, what do they mean? Can it fall down that it can kill the head of state? Or is there anything like cracks and so forth? These are some of the things that I talked about from the preamble of our discussion. I said the Ministry of Works and Supply needed to come up with a report, because they've got engineers there, professional engineers who would have gone there and check how State House is, and then they clear the air. We are talking about governing the people. Governing the people is not something that is very simple. It's very, 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 very delicate, situation, where if you want to govern the people, every simple thing that you are doing is being monitored. Yeah, even every word that you say, every movement that you do is subject for criticism. So in order for people to be, to feel comfortable, they needed to give a serious report. A report whereby they talk about the engineer's report. And at least that could have given him a very good defense when he was, addressing the media. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Now, as we close on the issue of Nkwazi House, I know it's a hot topic, but as the National Revolution Party, how would you like the structure to be from president-elect to actually moving into State House? How would you like the renovation process to be, or how long would you prefer it to take?
Like I said, we don't have engineers who can give us a good report. But in as far as I'm concerned, I think 3 months, 3 to 6 months would have been much more better. They can renovate it, turn it into a nice building, and add more features that they want to add. But we are against the issue of saying they shift State House from the current place, because that place is strategically fitted based on the security arrangement. Okay? Yeah, unless if maybe Lusaka is now changing, like we have seen Lusaka is growing. So since there's an expansion of Lusaka, maybe they can look at other areas. I don't know. Other areas maybe where they can build. But for the sake of reserving resources, I think the government should have looked into it by way of spending less, because where we are heading to, I don't know how things are going to happen, because they never budgeted for that. So they have to ask the Minister of Finance to maybe consider next year putting up a budget on that. It's not a simple thing where they can just start spending money. No, it's very important. So if they want to build State House, they must budget for that. It's very big. It's not something simple, no. And it must be on a strategic place. Yes.
All right, let's talk about the issue of the media fraternity in Zambia. Now, we understand you've been a politician for a very, very long time.
Okay.
And I'm sure you have monitored media then and now. How do you think public media houses are now operating under the new Dawn government? Because recently we had the issue of Madam Ruth Dante, who is the UPND media director, where she uploaded Prime TV for airing a very interesting documentary. And in her statement, she said Prime TV scoops ZNBC. She expected ZNBC to air it first. So after she had uploaded Prime TV for that documentary, I think 2 or 3 days later, ZNBC actually aired the same documentary and credited Prime TV. Now, we had a lot of stakeholders online that complained and said, why is she now giving why is she telling ZNBC what to do? Does it mean ZNBC is using the same structure as Prime TV? So being a politician for a very long time, how do you think media is now operating?
I may just simply say that the media in the country is actually relatively functioning properly, except for the government-controlled media. The private ones, I don't have any problem. And I may just simply say that the New Dawn government has made good strides in trying to bring up freedom of expression to the community. I think that policy is actually paying off to them. Why do I say so? Is that I remember what used to happen is that if you are in the studio like I am here, if I start criticizing the government, then what will happen is by the time I'm reaching the gate, I will expect to be lynched by the so-called party cadres. Why? Because they never wanted criticism to be in the public domain. Okay? Whoever criticizes the government was having a very serious challenge. But today, though we are yet to see, I cannot confirm properly, we are yet to see if we will move at the same pace. Because yes, the beginning is always okay, but the ending sometimes is very, very volatile. Why do I say so? Is that freedom of expression is very important. When people criticizes you, it means that they are seeing a weakness. And one should take advantage of that, because when you are being criticized, it means that by the time you are going to check, what are they criticizing me for? Then you will say, oh, I've got a mistake here, let me polish up. When you start polishing up on that one, you will see that indeed, you start governing the people properly. You get a point. When people criticize you, for example, they say, this is wrong, something is not good, and then you keep mute. I remember what used to happen is, for example, in the PF government, others will say, the minister has made a very big mistake here. We smell corruption here. But we hear other ones, or somebody who is maybe on top, who will say, look, you are accusing my government. You show us evidence. Okay? Show us evidence, then we'll take it up from there. But honestly, what evidence do you need? Somebody was putting on tropicals, but today is now stinking rich. There is no record of a company or what they were doing before. And then people must be able to question. It's simple. Somebody should just exonerate himself to say, no, look, this is the situation. So freedom of expression plays a very important role in the society. Okay? It disseminates information from where people didn't know anything, and then they will know. Like, for example, today, if you go to the village, what is trending in the urban areas, you find it in the village. They know. Why? Because there is online. People are able to access news even on the phone. People are accessing news even wherever they are. So, I can just simply say that the pace at which we are moving, people are no longer called ignorant of whatever is happening. People are updated, and that policy is good. I can commend the UPND for that. But I can foresee that there are still some cadres within UPND who are using derogatory remarks to people who are speaking ill. For example, there is this Rafael Nakachinda. I've seen some UPND, some UPND cadres talking very, very strongly against Nakachinda. In politics, you don't issue threats. You don't issue strong, what can I say, strong statements. Because even if you remember PF was in government, they were issuing very strong statements as if they will be there in government for forever. What has happened to them? They are out. Bashere kwati ninkoko ya seswa. A stripped chicken. You understand? So, freedom of expression is very important, and it helps the so-called Shylocks by IMF. It can help them because these are some of the things that they want.
Well, before you come to the issue of IMF, it is on our agenda.
Okay.
Mr. Chitupa, I'll just stop you right there.
Okay, no problem.
While we get to IMF, let's pass through Russia and Ukraine. Let's talk about the issue of Russia and Ukraine. Now, in your opinion, as the National Revolution Party, how do you think this war is affecting our development as Zambia? Because we've had different statements from different government officials giving us unclear statements we don't even understand, and we're trying to understand. Now, I'm sure I do know you know the type of statements I'm talking about.
Yes,
we spoke about this before the show. But before you get to the type of statements, maybe you can just give us a handle on how this war is affecting us as a developing country.
First and foremost, Zambia is a sovereign state. It means that its allegiance must be to the people. The power is based in the hands of Zambians. Okay? And therefore, those that are in leadership, they must be very, very sensitive about this issue. When we say power belongs to the people, it means that when Zambia is a sovereign state, the decisions that they are making when they are on top there, when they are in leadership, is a decision which is based on respecting the will of every Zambian. And the will of every Zambian is that we want our own Zambians not to suffer as a result of wrong decisions on top there. First, in the way Russia and Ukraine's war is affecting us, we shouldn't have taken sides. Okay? We shouldn't have taken sides. Why do I say so? It's simply because the main interest of the government must be to the Zambians. You understand? Look at what is happening. There are a lot of sanctions which Joe Biden and his allied countries have imposed on Russia. And Zambia, I believe, is siding with Ukraine. Yes, personally, I'm not saying war is good. No, it's not. It's not right. Okay, but what I mean is, Biden and the group, they should have pursued another path, not the path which they allowed. They allowed that to happen. What they should have done first is to exhaust dialogue to the fullness to avoid such a war to occur. Now, America was playing double standards. While on the other hand, they are busy promoting Zelensky, telling him you are a sovereign state, blah, 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 because of the way Ukraine has been able to offer a lot of services to Europe. Okay? And then what they don't even, what can I say? They forgot, let me say they forgot that that portion of Ukraine belongs to Russia, if you look at the history. So what Putin is doing there is only to show the world that, no, this thing belongs to us. Bring it back. You get a point. Bring it back. Now, there are two policies. A foreign policy which is going on, the global foreign policy which is going on now, is that you need to know where you are siding. If you don't want to side with anybody, you can remain neutral.
Like other countries.
Like other countries. Because if you remain neutral, it means that consequences might not reach you, because you have stated your position clear. You're telling them, no, we're not interested in that. We'll remain neutral.
So now what are
because the Russians have been sending our own citizens here to go and learn in Russia. They've been sponsoring them. Mm-hmm. That's one of the bilateral agreements which was agreed long time ago. So are you telling me that such bilateral agreements must be cut off? No. Russia has been helping in terms of even, helping us with fertilizer. Mm-hmm. Buying fertilizer comes from Russia. Okay? Now, if we say no, we don't want, including crude oil, if we say we don't want that, how are we doing? We are doing a disservice to us.
So what are some of the consequences that...
Some of the consequences that are going to happen is that on the global economy, for example, Russia and Ukraine, these countries, in terms of agriculture, they've been able to feed a lot of nations. Oh, talk about wheat, talk about soybeans, talk about whatever. They've been feeding a lot of nations. Other nations that have benefited is South Africa and so forth. Okay? Now that there's war, they are not going to farm. Who is going to farm? There's no one. So we expect famine. Okay? And when we expect famine, you know how economics is. If there is a shortage of goods in the market, it means the supply is low. And when the supply is low, the demand is high. So the demand for the food will be too much, and the price of such commodities will start surging. Okay? So how it is going to affect us is that there are certain, more especially on the area of agriculture, there are certain components or minerals that they add to manufacture fertilizer. Mm-hmm. And then since that won't be available, we are going to be affected. How are we going to buy from Russia, for example? How are we going to get things from there? They will slap us with penalties because of the sanctions. Okay? When it comes to crude oil, that's why I said if we are neutral, it's much more better. We would have behaved like the old Indians have behaved. The Indians have bought 5 million cubic liters of crude oil. I think they are going to enjoy, you see, at a lower rate, 50% discount. Okay? What about us? We are just a surviving smaller economy. If we didn't state our position, we would have said that. We would have looked at other areas. So, really, what I can say is that we as Zambians, we are going to be affected in the sense that if we continue on the same trend, the fuel importation will have a lot of, impediments in order to realize better prices of crude oil. Because there will be a lot of excuses by the conmen. They will be saying, because of this problem, so you can't pass oil this side, so you have to pay this, certain things like that. Even the route, if you have seen what is happening now, even the routes where the crude ships are supposed to pass, there are some submarines there now who have been stationed there that they want to start, sinking ships. So how are we going to survive? So it's a very, very big problem. Look at how NATO now is saying. We are not the only one affected. Look at Germany. Germany, for example, even in France, and the Italians, their economies are now in serious problems because they get things from Russia. Mm-hmm. And they are too much affected. They've been sending their emissaries to go and speak to Putin. When Putin launched that war, he was not foolish. He knew all these things that they will happen. Okay? So all the world leaders should have done is to sit down and find a lasting solution to that.
Now, speaking of leaders and sitting down, we have had some local chiefs, like some chiefs from the southern province, that have called on government to consider actually sending relief food to Ukraine and support people. What is your comment on that?
Really? That I don't know. Do we have excess food in this country? Because personally, I would have loved a situation where, first of all, we look at our own people first, instead of looking at Ukraine. Ukraine is being helped by so many countries, as I'm telling you now. It's a good idea, but first of all, we would have looked at our own people. For example, the Chinese have pulled out of Kafue Gorge. They haven't finished that work. It's a 2.3 billion something project. They haven't finished. The consequences of that is that we are going to be affected. Electricity.
Very interesting interview. Now, having said all that, when we come to looking at the Russia-Ukraine situation, let's talk about the IMF deal. Some stakeholders have called on government to be transparent and actually give the nation the terms and conditions of the IMF deal, or rather the IMF package. What's your comment on that?
Let me put it this way. First and foremost, you should have asked me a question whether I'm in support of IMF package bailout to our country.
You can still tell us, since
Yes.
you've already brought it up.
Do you remember that when PF was in government, there was a minister by the name of Felix Mutati?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. He promised Zambians that there's a package that we are negotiating with the IMF to bail out our country. We need so much money. We never received that money. Okay? And I take you back again. IMF has been playing on to the Zambian government for quite some time. Why do I say so? Is that we've been listening a lot of pronouncements from government officials telling us that the IMF is going to bail us out. We are looking for so much. What? To date, what we have seen is actually nothing. And to make matters worse, the head of state did not even settle down. He was elected he was ushered into government like today. After 4 or 5 days, he was out trying to even go and negotiate with such an organization. Have they come back? What is now surprising as at now is that we only hear a few government ministers talking about it. We are waiting for the stage stage 3. We've done part of it in order to convince them so that they can give us the monies. But those are stories that we've been hearing. And personally, I'm not in support of IMF. IMF is a very dangerous organization which should not be allowed. You understand? I remember in countries like Chile, Chile rejected IMF. And they changed governments within 10 years. About 4 governments were gone within 10 years in Chile because of the same behavior that we are seeing with IMF. Why? Because these guys, they come with their own condition. As at now, we are calling ourselves to be something as a sovereign nation. There's nothing like sovereign nation. This country belongs to other people. HH is just a rubber stamp president. He's got no powers to come up with his own policies to say this is what I want for my country. He can't do that. Mm-hmm. And we don't want such kind of leadership, no. What we want is a leadership where one can stand the test of time to say, no, I want my people to benefit. And that's what is needed. You understand? Whether it means tuachula, tuambo kuduya kalembula, there's no problem. As long as we are doing the right thing to our own selves. Look at what is happening in the mines. Look at what is happening in the mines. Who could not say? Why? Because IMF has got a very serious hand in that in the minerals of this country. I'm challenging those in government today. I'm challenging them. Let IMF officials address the Zambian community, the state at which we are. Why do I say so? It's simply because it is very cumbersome to be hearing about such stories every time. IMF, which is not making sense. If IMF want to give you a loan or a bailout package, one of the conditions that they give you is that you mustn't touch, what can I say, a wage bill. You understand? A wage bill mustn't go up. They will set the goal themselves. They will say, okay, if you are parting away with 500 million every month, that money should not go. It should in fact reduce. One of the conditions they will give to the government workers is that leave days must not be paid for. Nobody should go on leave. You cannot employ few more people. Now, I'm just watching, trying to hear what is convincing to myself or to ourselves as a party. Because, for example, you can't ask, you can't say we are going to employ people. I'm not against the people to be employed. I'm not against. It's a good idea. But you employ people, how are you going to find the money to give them? Where is the money coming from? Because the wage bill will be limited by the people who you want them to borrow you the money. That's why we are saying they are just playing on to people's minds. Otherwise, there is no such thing of IMF bailout. If IMF wanted to bail us out, they should have come on board immediately after August. Now we are we're heading towards attaining 1 year since the New Dawn government came into power. We've never had statements coming from IMF telling us this is the state, this is what we are going to do, and then this is what we are going to release, and so forth.
But is it the job of IMF to communicate to us?
That's why there's a representative.
Or is it the job of government?
That's why there's a representative of IMF. IMF has got a representative. If he is not there, at least maybe he's in the neighboring countries. They have to coordinate.
But don't you think it's the job of the ruling government to actually communicate to us as a people?
The ruling party has promised a lot of things to the people. So every statement that comes out of the ruling party might not be taken seriously. You understand? That's the way the situation on the ground is now. People don't seem to trust the ruling government because of the pronouncements they made in the recent past. Remember what they were promising people. The dollar will go down. Hey, blah, blah. Fuel will be cheap. Hey, what? Electricity will be cheap. What? All those things haven't been done properly. So people, a person like me, I'm not convinced. I will need people to speak or somebody to come and represent us who is from IMF. Maybe that's when I can believe them. Otherwise, it's a complete hoax. You understand?
So do you think IMF is somewhat responsible for the conditions that have been imposed on us as a country? Do you think they are somewhat responsible for our current economic status?
No, but they are very dangerous, conditions. These conditions have been rejected. Remember what I said in Chile. In Chile, they survive on copper. Those people, it's the same setup as us. We also survive on copper. But the measures that they put in place became very stiff to an extent whereby people stopped respecting their own currency because prices of commodities started skyrocketing, okay? And then they stopped respecting their own currency. What happened then? They rejected their own currency and the economy at a certain stage collapsed. You understand? And if the government is not very careful, the way they are increasing fuel, we are heading towards that. Because you cannot increase fuel and then expect the prices of essential commodities to remain the same. No. Hence, I am appealing to the government as at now. I'm appealing to the government as at now. Let them assemble a committee to look into sourcing or to source crude oil which is cheaper. Let them source crude oil which is cheaper. Otherwise, what is now going to happen is, I'm just reminding my fellow Zambians that we must brace ourselves for serious hardships that is ahead of us. Because, why do I say so? Government took side. They shouldn't have took side. You know, if they wanted a bailout, they can ask even a country which is rich to help us. Okay? There are so many countries which are rich. Do you know that in China, one Chinese guy, a billionaire Chinese, can bail out Zambia? In China, there are about 33 billionaires. More than that, maybe, if not mistaken. Now, are you telling me that one billionaire cannot bail out this country? You don't take sides. That's just an example, right? You don't take sides. What the government should have done is that, no, whoever is going to help us, we are going to agree with them, as long as we come up with good terms. When PF was in government, yes, PF made mistakes, but certain mistakes were not wrong. For example, by bringing in the Chinese investors to come and build structures in this country and to start manufacturing, that was a good process.
And still citizens complain. Some citizens complained that we've had too much of Chinese invasion in our economy.
It's not invasion. It's just a policy direction which the government was lacking. For example, if you call investors to come and manufacture goods in the country, when they manufacture those goods, they've got no right to sell to end users. It's a policy. That policy is supposed to be set up by the Ministry of Commerce and Industry to say, look, when you manufacture things, you can't sell to everybody, no. There must be standards, okay? And those standards are that if somebody comes from outside the country, comes here in Zambia, he wants to order things, he must order through a company, okay? If, for example, I'm an individual in Lusaka, I must order things through a company. I must go and register to such a company to set the standards. Because if everybody can be going there to go and buy those goods, the market will be fluctuated. You understand? Hence, people will start complaining, you are bringing Chinese goods, what? There is no competition. You can tell me, so a person from China, he comes here, you give him a trading license. He's not manufacturing. He's just ordering things from China there. He knows where it is cheap. He brings on the market to Zambia. Is he going to compete with the Zambians? No, because he himself will be very cheap. And Zambians will continue living in abject poverty because they can't make good business. You understand what I'm saying? So standards must be done in order to help our fellow Zambians.
So now what can Zambia do to be debt-free? What are some of the, maybe 2-3 examples, some of the implementations that we can take on so that we can be debt-free as a country like we were during the Mwanawasa regime?
To be a debt-free country, what these people should do, the way they are doing it by negotiating, it's healthy. To negotiate, they can negotiate with the Chinese, they can negotiate with the IMF, let them negotiate to say these are the terms that we feel it will help us. And then they must come up with the issue of how they can be collecting taxes to broaden the tax base. Okay? If there are certain borders which requires to be opened, let them open new borders also. Eh? And when it comes to the toll fees are very important. But the way the government is trying to come up with what we call PPZ, private partnership. I don't know what it means. Private partnership, where an investor will come here, they give him a road. This is the road you are going to build, and then they put 2 gates there, and then they sign an agreement to say the man will be collecting toll fees for 25 years or 30 years. Then you are auctioning the country. Mm-hmm. You are auctioning the country. You understand? What should be done is, this is not the first time that Zambians are seeing roads being built. We used to see roads being built even in MMD government, unit government, okay? But what we are saying is that the government should find ways on how they can gather money and engage in contractors and then build the roads. Once they start collecting those toll fees will work towards what you call routine maintenance of roads. Look at the roads that we have today. Those roads that we have today, they were built maybe about 5 years ago. They've started developing potholes. Mm-hmm. Now those potholes are coming. Since those potholes are coming, are you mending them or are you building new roads? You're not doing that, which is very wrong. A pothole is here today. We pay toll fees. I expect to see that that pothole is mended or new roads are coming up. When there's good roads network in the country, it means you are promoting agriculture. Agricultural economics also move, okay? Because people are transporting their goods to go and sell. Not only their goods, including copper, which we are having to transport it. We need good roads, you understand? So now, in an absence of good roads, you expect serious hardships with the people that own those vehicles, because they'll be spending too much money on spare parts and so forth, which is not good. What is more important is we must have roads which are very, very clear, not impassable roads, where you find the potholes are a killer, site. We don't want that. So, in my own view, IMF, they set their own benchmarks, where they will tell you as a government to say, look, on the watch bill, we want you to do this. On freedom of expression, we want you to do this. On fighting the corruption, we want you to do this. Okay? On several other sectors, they will advise you. But in as far as I'm concerned, at the moment, we are yet to hear IMF. That's why I've challenged the government to say, please, may you furnish us with the serious information that we need. If not so, then we need to reject IMF. We don't want them. Because IMF will come and tell you to say, go and sell electricity. And we have a deficit in here. You sell electricity and your own people are suffering. We don't want such kind of attitude. Yes.
Mr. Chitupa, every time we have an interview, we can go on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
9 minutes, last 2 minutes, or rather under 2 minutes. As the NRP, your take on HH's 7 months in office?
Yes, he's trying. He's trying, but let him be firm. Let him be firm in making decisions. And the decisions that he should also make must be under the interest of Zambians. This story of telling us to say, give us 5 years, things are going to work out. We've listened to such stories for a very long time. MMD used to promise us, no, just give us 2 years, 3 years, everything, what things improved? Nothing. The only improvement we came to see is only when Michael Sata promised people to say, within 90 days, you'll see massive developments. And for sure, we saw what was going on. You understand? Unlike what is going on right now. Development has stalled. Where we used to see development, there's no activity going on. Okay? On the roads infrastructure, we used to see caterpillars and whatever are being packed there in readiness for the building of the road, but we find that those people are no longer there. So we've reached a stalemate. We need this government to continue where PF left, to say they must continue with developmental projects. I'm not saying PF should come back. No. There are a lot of leaders who we can choose from. We don't want to go back to the kind of life we were subjected to. We don't want. We want another new force to come in. And definitely God is going to show us a new force.
Wow. Thank you very much for being a guest on The Insight with Hope. And thank you very much for watching The Insight with Hope. Remember to like subscribe to our YouTube channel, Z Corner TV, and like our Facebook page, Z Corner TV. Have a lovely evening and join us again this week as we bring another interesting guest.